Hey, we're back. Welcome into another edition of the Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. Matthew Bartlett here from the Roost. JP Heath, Rice Owl's voice, just like it says under our names next to the bios right there, just in case you forgot at this point who we were. Unlikely. Speaking of forgetting things, JP, should we just forget the Charlotte game and move on, or should we give 30 seconds of man, what happened?
It was pretty surreal there. You experience it. You are so into every snap, every possession, and then looking back a couple days ago, like, oh wait, got outscored 42-3 in the second and the third quarter. The old coaching adage. The reason it's a cliche is because it's true. You can't let that game beat you twice. And the best thing that could happen as they play on a Thursday game. Just cleanse that one from the palate as soon as you can. I think coach and the staff tried to do that Saturday night, moving on to the minors, which we will preview indefinitely coming up here. But man, that was a stinker. No way about it. It was not a good performance in any way. You tip your hat to Charlotte, but yeah, not much went right outside of getting the 14-7 first quarter lead. After that, the wheels came off the wagon, so to speak.
Yeah, I got nothing, man. If you want a further blow by blow recap of the Charlotte game and an airing of grievances, I'll go ahead and plug the Roost Pod. Go find us. It's on all our socials and on anywhere you listen to your podcast. We got 30 minutes opining on what could have been and kind of debriefing that one. We are going to look ahead, turn the page, and then I think it's interesting because, I guess with Thursday night football and the NFL shortening the calendar and things, the midweek Thursday game has kind of become more normal to people consuming football these days. But kind of what you don't think about is the logistics behind what goes into playing on a Thursday. And I think it's interesting in this aspect because what Rice has had to do is they've basically turned their Monday and Tuesday practice and jammed it into Sunday, and then Monday becomes Wednesday. And the way they've kind of put it together is you're actually doing a lot. I'm not going to say a lot less, but you're truncating the amount of time that you have to prepare on UTEP specifically. So maybe at this point, maybe with Charlotte, there was some overthinking. At this point, it's kind of you get your game plan installed and you have your look at what you think UTEP is. But I think Bloomgren said it on his press conference on Monday, essentially alluding to what Rice is going to do this weekend is they're going to play their greatest hits. There was no time to scout and get too deep into the weeds of trying to counteract what UTEP wants to do. It's really Rice going back to the basics this week and saying, what are we good at on offense, on defense, on special teams? Let's do that. Is that kind of a fair synopsis of how Rice is trying to move forward into this game?
100%, because even if it was a 42-41 win like the week before, you'd still have to move on and not try to bask in the glow of that victory. But since it was such a stinker, all the more incentive to move on and all the more incentive to simplify. They are in no space to try to be overly complex, and it's not the most complex game plan they're going against. We'll talk more X's and O's in a second, but UTEP does things really well. They have a really good defensive line. They try to run the football. They try not to make the big mistake through the air, and their secondary is pretty stout in coverage. Other than that, it's not like you're getting ready to play Army, having an advanced prep like that, or going against a fast-paced offense. But this is a team that they're pretty familiar with and the scheme. So I think that helps, and it helps not traveling too. Coach also mentioned that in his presser, not having to fly out right now. If this is a road game, you and I probably wouldn't be talking right now because we'd be hoofing it to Hobby and then getting in the charter and heading out to the desert. But I was talking with my buddy John Teicher, the longtime 42-year voice of the UTEP Miners, and they were preparing to head out to the bus to go to the airport there in El Paso. So yeah, you'd rather be on the home side of things in this scenario. You just rather have that win in the back pocket. And UTEP is playing in a spot where they really want to make a bowl game. Hey, who doesn't? But at the same time, they played one extra game. So I think they come out really, really wanting to start fast in this one.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that this, and I kind of put it together in one of my previews when I'm putting it together on the site, is that this is it's wild that we went into the Charlotte game with kind of where our expectations were, and I don't think going into that game we were kind of like, okay, you'd like to win both of these games at home. Like at worst you got to split, but I don't think there was any really like dire feelings at that point. But right now, for Rice and for UTEP, this kind of feels like a must-win game just because of how things set up with how both teams close the schedule. You mentioned UTEP had played one extra game. They enter at 4-5. Rice is 4-4. Both of these teams, I guess, technically in the middle, but not at the top right now of the conference standings. Rice is going to close out at Western, home against UTSA, and at North Texas. Those are all going to be challenging football games. UTEP finishes with FIU, who's showed some spunk lately, and UTSA. So you're talking about bowl games as both teams went into this season unabashedly saying, this is the standard, this is what we want to do. If you lose this game, neither team is eliminated, but you got to go through UTSA to get there more than likely. And that's not a situation either team wants to be in, especially given how well UTSA has handled this conference in recent years. So a lot of stake at this game. I'm going to go ahead and say it's as close to a must-win game as you can have on the first week of November as you could probably get to. But I mean, I guess that's a good point for both programs. You rewind when Bloomgren and Dimmel are hired at their respective programs the same time, kind of going counter to the typical, let's just bring in the spread guy, right? They hire some guys in the trenches to bring them in, and neither of these programs had been anywhere near a bowl game. So they both kind of elevated to that point. Now it's kind of like UTEP got there last year. Rice wants to get there. There's a lot of stake at this game.
Yeah, no doubt. Agree, co-sign and everything you just said. And you look back at the schedule, I don't think we've referenced it in 2 or 3 weeks, but you go like everybody does, every fan, at least most media members would go through and look WL, and look at the winnable games on the docket. This is one of them. And if you don't win the UAB game and you win this one, you could still be at a 5-4, or you don't win the UAB one and you win the Charlotte one. You could still be at this 4-4 mark, even though you obviously want to win every one of them. So it's crazy how, as the great Michael Scott said, I've got an office quote around here, but how the turntables, you just never know when things, how the schedule will shake out the way it will. But yeah, co-sign what you said. This one is gigantic ahead of in front of a national television audience at that.
Can we just be honest and say they're all national television audiences at this point? Like, if the game is going on the internet, if it's on ESPN3, ESPN Plus, like anybody and their mom can pull it up. So, yay.
No, I won't push back too much on that, but there's something different. I mean, you have the bigger production crew, you have the better cameras, you have this bigger element to it. I think it is a bigger game when you have Carter Blackburn and Tom Herman up in the booth, but I come from the broadcasting angle of things too. It's much easier to get the game, and you move the game around from what would be a Saturday to a Thursday. So yeah, you don't do that for the web streams and whatnot. But yeah, it's still, regardless, like 6 1, half dozen the other. It's still a gigantic game either way, whether it's on a Friday afternoon or on a Thursday night or on a Saturday at high noon. It's a big one, however you slice and dice it.
You can disagree with me. It's allowed. Maybe even encourage. We get some intensity in here, but we will move on. We haven't talked I guess we're going to go to the weeds now. We're going to talk the UTEP Miners, and first blush, kind of past look at this team. I think you look the past. I say that, and then I'm going to go talk about something else. Forgive me, but you look at the last two games Rice has had against Louisiana Tech and against Charlotte. 4 quarterbacks in that span in those games. But the one thing in common with everything that they kind of experience is teams that came out with the express goal of wanting to chuck it across the yard. There was really not much of a predilection to the running game or a big scare. I think Charlotte was able to run the football pretty well, but that was not the 1A plan of attack for the 49ers. You go look at this game, and at some point you just got to have to breathe a sigh of relief that Gavin Hardison, I know is one of the more experienced quarterbacks in this league at this point. He's been around, he's played in some games, he's won some games, but he is not the caliber of passer that has you sweating. He's not the guy that is probably going to take over this game and throw for 500 yards. That's not what UTEP wants to do. That's not what Hardison is going to do at the helm of the offense. It's going to look different. So you got Bordy pulled up. We talked a little bit about Hardison, but let's focus on the running game and what UTEP is going to kind of focus on out of the gate. They got a couple of guys. Let's kind of look through them. Deion Hankins, Ronald A. Watt, arguably one of the better 1-2 punches in Conference USA. Is that fair?
No doubt. When you look at this modernization of football and you see it more so on the NFL level, and just the running game has been de-emphasized. It's not always the actor. You don't have to turn it, hand it, and run around the corner or up the middle. It's just getting the yards and getting the points. There's not too many feature backs, as many feature backs across college football, and even less in the NFL. But yeah, Hankins and Awat, when you combine at this point, when your two guys have right at around 1,100 yards, you're doing something right. Now, you see over here, they're still bottom 2 in the conference in scoring, and they're only 7th rushing the football in the league, and less than the back half in the country. So they're not getting a whole lot from the ground game, but they're still getting those bulk yards. You see the number of carries it takes to get those. But yeah, they run a lot out of the fullback, and they don't really throw it too deep that much when you look at the passes per attempt and even the accuracy of Hardison. But yeah, Dana Dimble's a running guy, and when you look at Dave Warner, the OC, I mean, all you have to know is that he spent 13 years associated up at Michigan State, and this has that blue collar type of feel. It fits in perfectly with what Dana Dimble tried to do at Wyoming, and what he's continued to improve and progress. It's like every game, it's going to come down to the line play, opening up the holes for those backs. But yeah, Hankins and Awat, maybe not the top 2 talent-wise in the league. They're still 2 very good backs that can share the load in this one.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, yeah, they might not be as proficient on the ground. Like North Texas is probably the standard in the league right now. They've been gashing it every time they get a carry. But you look at Hankins, 5 yards a carry, Ronald Awat, 4.3 yards per carry. As a team, it's effective, and they're might not hit the 70-yarder. Like, that's completely conceivable, but for a Rice defense that, for different reasons, mostly through the air, but has not been able to get off the field the past 2 weeks, if you have guys that can get 4 or 5 yards a carry every carry, that leads to extended drives. And you're not going to probably have the same scenario you did a couple weeks ago in the last couple weeks where that's going to necessarily relate to 40-plus points. You would hope, please, no 40-point games against UTEP, but it is going to keep the Rice offense off the field. That's what they want to do. That's what Rice has been trying to do in recent seasons, same kind of mentality. And what we've seen from the Rice offense of late is when you take the ball and they get that 3 and out or that 4-play short drive and they punt and they sit on the sideline 15, getting in that rhythm has been hard, and it makes sense. But that's what makes the UTEP attack so interesting, is because it's different, but the way that they're designed still can give some troubles for the out if they aren't fundamentally sound, which execution has been a challenge in recent weeks. So they need to sort that out. We talked about the running game. I do want to highlight real quick their receiver Tyron Smith. He's actually excuse me, where I'm losing my notes here. Ninth nationally in receiving yards, all tops of all conference USA, 803 receiving yards. They had, a tandem in Jacob Cowing now at Arizona. Is that right? Yeah. Arizona State. They've had some great receivers come through there in recent years. They left, and the offense is, obviously you'd like to have a guy like him, but they've been continuing to find success through the air. It's going to be that play action through the running game that sets that up. So Rice can hold tight and kind of defend the run game well. That kind of will give the guys on the back end a better shot. So we got them. A couple other guys. Who else do we see on Bordy? Oh, Bordy's gone. Anybody else that we need to particularly worry about? Because I think it's, this is me sitting in my office, postulating. But I think if you can slow the running game down and make sure Tyron Smith doesn't beat you deep, there's not really anybody else in this offense that is going to pose individually, the same kind of threat that you got last week from some of those Charlotte receivers.
Well, we haven't focused a lot on Hardison. He has really improved. Coach Bloomgren told me in our show, moved it to last night. All the days are blending together in these short weeks. But he said that the numbers don't show the type of quality quarterback that he is. They've shifted some things on the line. Got to look out for the big fellas there. And it's an older offensive line, too, that has been there a bit with Coach Dimmel, who has his roots in the offensive line game. And Trent Thompson, local kid, doesn't see a lot of balls, but he is a veteran guy that helps out definitely in blocking situation. Beckley, and we haven't talked, each week we don't really focus. We kind of take special teams for granted. Sorry, slap on the wrist there. But Beckley is a veteran that's got a really good leg back there. Honestly, I don't know too much about Sloan. We don't want to stereotype Australians, but UTEP goes with the kick academy roots to get a big-legged Aussie in there. But one final stat is they turn the ball over a lot, but they're the one team in the conference. It's weird when you look at the numbers, like this doesn't add up. Like they're the
welcome
bottom
to Conference USA.
Yeah, just insert emoji here, where they're bottom 30, I guess, in third downs, but they are so friendly. They're last in the conference, or first, giving up the football. They're the worst at protecting it, but let's not throw any stones, Owls, as Rice has given the ball up 16 times, right behind UTEP for second most in conference. So they've been too friendly at it, but UTEP is the one team better than Rice, and they're 15th in the nation at time of possession. So that'll obviously be a big factor in this one too. They just, you can't give the football to the other team. I know I'm breaking huge football news here. Put it in those things that we used to read called newspapers, but you can't give it up as much as the Owls have. And just when you think you've given the football up a lot, UTEP's given it up that much more. And but the Owls, when the Owls do keep possession, when they can sustain those drives, they've generally been pretty good in the red zone. So hold the football long enough to get in there and capitalize on those turnovers too from UTEP if and when they come.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. And then short week, two teams that have had problems turning the football over. It sounds like it could get messy. I hope that's not the case, but if we do, I hope it's the Owls that benefit, not the Miners. But other side of the football, we got to talk defense for UTEP, which I think is more interesting because they're stingy. This has been a team that as the offense has kind of started to pick up, the defense has been there, and they've been a really good defensive team for the past couple years now. It helps with the the defensive line they have. Jadrian Taylor, who's kind of in the preseason run up, we kind of talked about as he's the other guy on the line. He's actually tied for first in the nation with 8 sacks, opposite of Amahule. I got it right the first time. There you go. Who actually had his first sack of the season last week against Middle Tennessee. But it's one of those things. You're going to focus on praise, and then Jadrian Taylor going to beat you on the other side, or vice versa. So there's no right answer. But this is a team that has 2 legitimate, very, very good, maybe 3, quite possibly, pass rushers that can cause trouble. And Rice had a lot of good fronts early on in the season, and this is going to be another one. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge up front for the Rice offensive line.
Yeah, Amahule's been there forever and a day, Katy kid, so no doubt he'll have a big cheering section. And you talked about Jadrian Taylor over there on that other side. I always got to give love to the former Lufkin Panther, because I don't know if you know this, but you are doing a show with the former voice of the Lufkin Panther. So I obviously didn't do his games, but always following the former Lufkin Panthers, a town close to my heart. But yeah, he's getting it. That's one player that Coach Bloomgren also tied first nationally, well, not only leading Conference USA, but Taylor tied with the nation's leader with 8 sacks on the season. So to me, it seems like that all the attention being given to Amahule over here on this side, that they've taken advantage over on the other side with Taylor. So, and that's when UTEP, when UTEP's been good in the past, when they had some successes, last 10, 15 years or so, they've had those stout defensive lines, and they've had the great offensive line play. And this has the makings of one of those types of teams. I don't know how deep in the weeds you wanted me to get. There's some other things, but I'll let you steer the ship. But yeah, the defensive line is definitely, I think, the strength of that defense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And they've always found another guy next level up. You're screwing up. We'll hit linebackers too. It feels like they just always find these guys who just make tackles, man. It's not complicated. Tyrese Knight is the returner, the guy who's I feels like he's been there forever. Cal Wallerstedt has kind of come on. He had a career high 14 tackles last week to see, but they got a couple dudes here. And then, between front 7, that's kind of the matchup that I'm most curious to see how that develops. Can Rice run the football? Who is going to run the football for Rice? That's a question that we're kind of seeking answers for, and how they line up. Big picture, do you got a good feeling, a decent feeling? Are you concerned when you kind of look at the front 7 as a whole? Where do you think Rice matches up? How do you think they match up against this team?
I think it's a better run defensive team. And you saw them in spots take advantage of Charlotte's weak run defense. It didn't matter in the end because Charlotte really hammered things over from the offensive side, and Chris Reynolds did his Chris Reynolds magic. But I mean, against the rush, this team is not spectacular, but they're not terrible. They're kind of middle of the pack, lower in that rush defense in the country. They're not a ball hawking defense. It looks like with the numbers, they've only had 3 picks on the season. That's last in Conference USA, but that's one of those, that's the thing. Who can make sense of anything in this wacky world? But that doesn't add up that they're very good. That speaks to me. That's why I said it earlier, the defensive line being a strength of their team. They're 4th nationally with those 10 fumbles forced, and they really tighten their belt. This will be kind of a micro focal point that when the Owls get in the red zone, this is a team that is really good defensively in the red zone in UTEP. Bradley Dale Pivoto comes with a who's not aggressive as a defensive coach, but he comes with that rep. And can the Owls make those plays in the red zone. Modern age of college football says, hey, just let a team drive as much as they can, and they'll make a mistake. So what does TJ McMahon do? How does he rebound after that setback? He still did a lot of things well in that game against Charlotte that was overshadowed by what turned into a blowout loss. But how does he do things in the red zone against this defense? That's pretty stout. On the front, and the linebackers are good. We just don't know. It's got a lot of JUCO guys and transfers mixed in there, but the strength of their defense lies on that defensive line.
Yeah, because I want to talk a little bit and hit on the secondary, the passing defense for UTEP. It's an interesting story because if you look up, just pull the numbers up, they're second in Conference USA in passing yards allowed per game. So that seems pretty good on paper, but you look deeper and you actually go and look at the conference games that they've played. They had the North Texas game out of the gate where North Texas throws for 240 and 3. Then you have a non-conference stretch where Oklahoma is kind of still figuring things out. They throw for 230 and 2. Then New Mexico State, New Mexico, and Boise State, who all throw for less than 120 yards per game, one combined touchdown in those, as all three of those programs are going through some struggles. Then you turn on conference, and I'm sorry I'm reading numbers to you game by game. We try not to do that, but I have to pull this out because you get to conference play. Charlotte, 350, 4 touchdowns. Louisiana Tech, 270, 4 touchdowns. Middle Tennessee, 265, 3 touchdowns. Florida Atlantic, 165 and 1, but 1 interception and 12 touchdowns in their 4 conference games the last couple weeks. So paper says this is a decent pass defense. I think that's kind of a misnomer. I think they have some inconsistencies on the back end. Their discipline, the propensity to give some of those big plays. Rice has Luke McCaffrey, Brad Rosner, and there's no spoiler alert, possibly Cedric Patterson back this week. We'll see. That's so many pieces. We need to see success through the air. This is going to be a very good team up front. They're going to try and get to the quarterback. They're going to try and clog running lanes. You can make that not happen if they have to respect that trio of pass catching options that Rice has. Is that overly simplifying things? It is, but is it at least believable oversimplification?
It is. It's a long answer of oversimplification. No, it's simplified succinctly, as we always do. They feel like we're just breaking news left and right. They've got to make more big plays. They started early last week against the 49ers, but they just didn't consistently do it. And I'm fascinated to see if McMahon can hit. I think McCaffrey will be the guy this week after Rosner. They seem to be alternate. I talked to Luke during the week. Encourage fans, if they haven't heard, go back and check that out on the archive. But hearing Luke talk about Roz, he didn't want to talk about his own success. He's made that seamless transition to wide receiver. But TJ hooking up, whether it is to Roz or it is McCaffrey. And we started to see Isaiah get back in the mix. He had an ankle injury that he was working through the last couple weeks, and hopefully he's back. I don't have this on any authority, but just in the past, I wouldn't expect Ced Patterson to come out of the gate and go like he did a few times last year, getting 4 catches for 80, 90 yards. I think they'll have to work him back.
They also don't need him to. We haven't even mentioned Kobe Campbell, who's had some big plays in big games. They got Cam Montgomery. It's not like, hey, Ced, please, catch the ball 15 times today. We have nobody else. They have plenty. I'm just going to be thrilled if he's able to get on the field. He catches a pass, man. That sideline's going to go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he is just they're all great young guys, but what Patterson did, and not to make this the Ced Patterson show, but graduated from 3 years from New Mexico and then comes here. He's a Crosby kid, so he comes back locally. Comes from a great family, and just seeing a guy like that after being such a great addition last year. Remember, you and I talking before the season last year, man, this guy is something like we haven't seen in a while. And this is before McCaffrey. And remember, Rosner was missed the year before. But yeah, it'd be great to see him. I think it's more of a McCaffrey turn. This is his type of game to soften things up and test that secondary. Like you rattled off those numbers. This would be huge for McMahon to come back and have one of those 290, 300 games and make a big play. But it seems like defenses are playing him a lot different. But then he's tried to counter that using his legs too. So can't wait.
Yeah. Lots to watch. It's going to be fun. We got the ticker down here at the bottom. I did want to hit Dia de los Bujos.
CC.
We got Hispanic
Amigo.
CC. Look at us go. We got Hispanic Heritage happening on. Anything special in particular we know going on for that? I think they have a couple things planned at least.
Yeah, a lot of it centers around obviously recognizing the great Hispanic community around Houston and specifically recognizing the faculty at Rice, Dia de los Bujos. We have a Jason Metco appearance on the broadcast. Nate has his big-time TV duty. He's covering the Texans since the other Fox personnel will be in Philly. I don't know if you heard this, but the Astros are in the World Series. So Metco stepping up from the sideline, and he's going to be in the booth with me, Matthew, on this national TV appearance. See what
it's going to be fun. We'll get a Saturday off too, so we can go. Go rest and recoup.
I'm Cali, buddy. I've got Rice basketball starting. We're flying out to California Saturday. So.
That's right, Pepperdine. Yeah, I'll do one last plug on my way out. Talked with Lindsay Edmonds, women's basketball coach, this week. It chatted with Para a couple weeks ago at practice. We got some preseason previews on both of those teams dropping this weekend, and we got basketball. Man, it's I can't keep up. This will be football. We'll do one thing at a time here until we have to be in 7 places at once. And then JP will clone himself and magically make it all work as he does every year. But we'll leave that for the future. For now, football only. We will sign off. We will be back next week, rain or shine, no matter what. We got a couple Rice football games left to kind of walk you through. And for now, we will sign off. JP Heath, Matthew Bartlett, saying see you next week. Rice fight
never dies. Hoot hoot. Had to make some baseball